Hello friends, this is Christy Dawson with the Western Group Real Estate. I received a call from a friend and she wanted to know what I thought about rent to own properties. He said, I've been thinking about buying a house. I have the income, I have the down payment, but I don't have good credit, so I can't do it for a few years. But I saw something on Craigslist and it shows this beautiful home at a great price and it says rent to own. So I wanted to call you and ask you what you thought since you've been on the business for so long. So I wanted to tell you some things that I have learned over the years. First of all, you may have heard a lease with an option to buy. It's the same thing. These type of transactions we don't have in real estate companies because there is a high risk of the litigation. And probably by the time that I'm done making this video, you're going to find out why. The first thing that you're asked to do is to put 3 to 10% down payment. Now, let's say that the price of the home is $400,000. That would be between $12,000 and $40,000. So it is not small money. The next thing is that you have 2 to 5 years, depending on what the seller decides, because he is the one that is going to set the terms, to get your financial life together. In 2 years or 5 years, whatever he decides, you are going to be able to carry this loan. You're going to be able to qualify for a loan. So in the case of my friend, if she doesn't have good credit, she has whatever time he decides to get her financial life together. What I would do to remedy this obstacle is I would talk to a lender. A lender is going to run your credit and he's going to see what your debt to ratio income is, which means that the lender is going to see how much money you make, how much money you spend, and if your debt to ratio income is at between 36 to 42%, you're okay. You need to be under those limits. If it is higher, then you will not be able to qualify for a loan. So a lender is very likely to tell you what things you need to do to get your financial life together. Now, there are things that could happen. Let's say that after 2 to 5 years, you have no credit still. You haven't been able to pay off your loans on your cars or your jewelry or your furniture. Then you're going to lose that down payment. That down payment is non-refundable. So another thing that you have to remember is if you have had bankruptcy, Chapter 13 or Chapter 7 in the last few years, you will not be able to buy a home. It stays on your credit for 10 years. Now, Chapter 13 is where you're still making payments on some of your debts. Chapter 7 is where you are not making payments. Either one of those will disqualify you from getting a loan for 10 years. So do not get into rent to own agreements if you have a bankruptcy, please, because you are definitely going to lose that money. Now, another thing that I would highly recommend is to do an appraisal. Why? Let's say that the seller says, well, I want to rent to own this property for $400,000. So let's sign this contract. Now, what if the house is not worth $400,000? How are you going to know? So what you're going to do is you're going to get an appraiser to come to the property and tell you if that house is worth what the seller wants. It could come back at $3,000 or $300,000 or $350,000. Now it's time to negotiate. You need to go back to the seller and say, hey, this is what that appraisal came back at, and this house is not worth what you're asking for. And so then hopefully the seller will lower the price. If not, it's time to get out. Another thing is that you need to remember is in 2 to 5 years, that house that is $400,000 now might be worth $600,000 because the market is very temperamental and it changes all the time. Now, this type of agreement is not binding, so either the seller or the buyer can cancel. So let's say the house is worth now $600,000. That seller is not going to want to sell it to you for $400,000. Well, let's put it in the opposite way. The property values go down and the house is worth now $300,000. You're not going to want to pay an extra $100,000, right? So as you can see, there's a risk of litigation in many ways. But it's always a good idea to get an appraisal so you know today what that value is. Another suggestion that I make is to get a home inspection, because once you sign the contract, you own all the problems of the house. So let's say you have a leak on the roof, or the AC unit is on its last leg. To replace a unit, you're going to spend about $5,000 to $7,000 or $8,000. So you want to get a home inspection to know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And once you get that, you approach the seller and say, hey, before we sign that agreement, you need to fix this and this and this and this. Another thing that you need to remember is to do a title search, because there might be judgments, there might be liens or unpaid taxes. You don't want to buy the house or sign anything without clearing those items, because guess what? Once you sign, you own those. And if you have any of those items, you could request for the seller to remedy those before you take possession of the house and you get the title on your name. So there's, I should see, some things that you need to do before you put your signature on that paper. Also, talk to a lawyer. Take that agreement to a lawyer, because guess what? That agreement that you have in front of you has not been prepared by the California Association of Realtors or whatever state you reside. That agreement has been prepared by your seller. So it's going to have all the terms that the seller wants you to agree. That seller is not going to be looking out for you. It's going to be looking out for himself. So make sure you take this agreement to a lawyer that can view it and can alert you of any things that you should be aware of. And be careful with scams. There's lots of scams. You know, my friend who called me and said that she saw this house on Craigslist? Be careful. Anything that is on Craigslist, you got to take a second look, because what I've learned in the past is that there will be people from a different country who will advertise these homes, and they tell you, and you say, oh yeah, I love this home, I want to do this rent to own agreement. And so they will tell you, okay, well, the seller's out of the country, but you can swing by the house and let me know if you like it. And you say, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm going to give you $100,000 discount. So you get really, really excited. Oh yeah, I want to do this. Now they said, okay, now you need to wire this money. That's the first red flag. Do not wire any money. Don't give any cash to anybody. If you're going to buy a home, make sure you use a real estate agency. Or if you're going to do rent to own, just make sure you get to know this seller. Make sure that you can verify through the title company that the seller actually owns that house. Use an escrow company. I know it's a cost, probably about, depending on the price, but maybe it could range between $1,200 to $1,800. It's worth every penny, because they will do that title search. They will make sure that once you buy that house, it's free and clear. So follow these tips. Don't waste your money. Be very careful. And if you have any questions regarding this topic or any other one, please ask them below in the link, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Hopefully that you learned something today, and have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.